Let's bring in former Army Reserve Captain and Intelligence Officer, a Republican candidate for Congress in Arizona, Abe Hamadeh, and from the Alliance of Los Angeles County Parents, Attorney Julie Hamill. Thank you both for coming. We appreciate it. So, I get the federal government, Julie, has failed on this. Listen, we see it. 7 million migrants have come in. I'm just wondering, does Texas, you're the lawyer, does Texas have legal standing to actually shut down that park and keep the Border Patrol from coming in there?
Well, this is a really fascinating issue, and I've been doing a deep dive on Texas history. You know, they were an independent nation for 10 years.
Yeah.
But what's going on right now is our federal government is not only not enforcing the border, they are actively interfering with Texas' efforts to defend and enforce its border.
Yeah.
And then what is going on at the border, I think, is unprecedented. And you're looking at the harms, you're looking at the children being displaced from schools in order to house migrants. These are real issues that have real impacts on American taxpayers, and nobody's doing anything at the border. And in fact, the DOJ is actually suing Texas for trying to defend its border.
Right. Yeah, it really doesn't. It doesn't make any sense. And Abe, you know, the flood is coming over your border as well in Arizona, and we have noticed that now for the past 3.5 years. What are your thoughts on what Greg Abbott is doing in Texas, and do you think it's a good move?
And what other option does he have, Trace? When the federal government has refused to act, it's up to the states to actually protect its citizens. You know, Arizona is home to SB 1070, if you remember that law from about 13 years ago, where we were sued by the federal government. So Texas has to undergo these legal challenges. But, you know, with the new makeup of the Supreme Court, I'm more optimistic that the states are going to win on this issue because, you know, as we've all seen, that 7 to 10 million people coming across our southern border, that's importing a whole new state. That's bigger than the state of Arizona. It's unsustainable. It's putting a strain on all these resources. So, you know, the Democrats and these mayors in Chicago and New York, I see them, you know, up in arms about what's happening because they have to live with the consequences of their sanctuary cities. But, you know, I applaud Governor Abbott for actually taking matters into his own hands to protect his own citizens.
And you talk about the strain it's putting on cities. New York Mayor Eric Adams now considering a curfew for migrant shelters. Here's a Brooklyn man. Put this up on the screen. He describes his neighborhood, quoting, "I see them." He's talking about the migrants sitting outside stores, outside the mall, and going around to all the houses in the neighborhood, knocking on the door, looking for the money. The city does not have the resources, Julie, to be able to deal with this kind of a thing. We have seen this not just for a couple of months. This has been going on for the better part of a year and a half in New York, and they've said again and again, we need help. They've gotten no help.
Well, and I think we're going to see some action from the United States Supreme Court because last night the United States Department of Justice filed an emergency application for a stay of the injunction. The injunction prohibits the feds from interfering and cutting down the barriers that Texas has put into place. And so now there is an emergency application pending before the United States Supreme Court. I'm very interested to see what ends up happening with that.
Yeah, it's fascinating because, you know, that could change the dynamic of how a lot of these cities handle this. Speaking of cities, here is a Chicago resident saying the homeless do not get the same care from the local governments as the migrants. Watch.
Not only are the Chicago residents who are homeless not getting the same annuities that the migrants are getting, they're not getting help at all. They're not receiving the same services. Some of the migrants are being put up in hotels.
That from New York State, Abe Hamadeh, to Chicago, you name it, the same complaints are the migrants are getting preferential treatment they're getting in the schools, and the people who actually are citizens of these countries, of these states, not getting it.
It's so sad to see. You know, we have homeless veterans on the streets, but, you know, what we've done by importing 7 to 10 million illegal immigrants, we've really imported 7 to 10 million homeless illegal immigrants. That's the issue. So you're seeing them now kicking students out of schools to house these illegal immigrants in schools. It's the American people are waking up, and it's no longer, it's a nonpartisan issue, Trace. So if you're seeing what's happening here in Arizona, finally the rest of the country is waking up to what we've had to deal with for the past decade or so. So, you know, President Trump, he really had a handle on our southern border. That's what's amazing. With 300,000 people entered our country just last month. Imagine that. 300,000 new people. That's importing a new city every single month. It's unsustainable. So, you know, right now, Congress needs to act to secure our border because we know the Biden administration is failing to do its job.
Abe Hamadeh, Julie Hamill, thank you both.
Thank you.
Now back to the breaking news.